Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck, and of course that means some smart talk radio, of course, is in your future, in this segment, no exception. You have heard a lot about Chicken Soup for the Soul, that entire series on this show in the past, and we are very happy in this segment to have the publisher, editor-in-chief, and author a part of that series. Amy Newmark is with us. She has quite a background. She's been a writer, speaker, financial analyst, and business executive in the world of finance and telecommunications for over 3 decades. She's also publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the book series. She's co-authored at least the last 100-plus books, of which there are hundreds and hundreds. She has a weekly syndicated column through the Hearst Corporation, a weekly column on sheknows.com with over 40 million unique visitors every single month. And it's somewhere along the line she certainly enjoys her life back in the state of Connecticut. Amy, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, although now you've made me very tired.
Yeah, I was tired reading it. Did you?
I was just saying to my husband last night that I never look at the forest. I only look at the trees, because if I looked at the forest, my head would explode.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. Well, Amy, the Chicken Soup for the Soul series is well known. Share with us a little bit about your career path. We graduate from college. I'm assuming you're a college graduate. And then from there, what happens? Bring us up to today.
I graduated from college. I went to work as an analyst in the telecom industry, ended up on Wall Street, ran a hedge fund, joined the management team of a startup in the telecom industry, then went on to be a board member at a lot of different public technology companies. And then my husband and I, all the kids were gone. We could have been looking at retirement, and instead, crazy us, we decided to buy Chicken Soup for the Soul, along with a bunch of our friends and family members, from Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, who started it in 1993.
Right.
We bought it in 2008, just as the last kid was going off to college, and we've been working harder than ever since for the last 7 years, and loving it.
What do you think? What was it about Chicken Soup for the Soul, the entire series, that intrigued you so much, and what is it that has struck such a nerve?
What I love about Chicken Soup for the Soul is that you have ordinary people sharing extraordinary experiences with our readers. And it's a great way to give a voice to everyone out there and to have everyone share their best stories and pass on their best wisdom and their best advice to the people coming up behind them who might be in the same place in their lives. And so an example is this new book, The Power of Forgiveness, where the reason I made it was because I was getting so many stories about forgiveness for our other books, and I realized we should do a book just on this topic, because people talked about how forgiveness freed them to move on with their lives. And so that's why we said, you know what, we have this great format, 101 stories from regular people. Let's apply this format to this new topic, which, by the way, I think makes for a great New Year's resolution, now that you've realized you're not going to lose 10 pounds.
Okay, that's well put. Amy, you've been a financial analyst. You know a lot about business. You know a lot about marketing. Tell us who if there's not a target market by design, who reads Chicken Soup for the Soul? Tell us about them.
It's read by everyone, but we know that in general, women read more books than men, and we also know that women buy more consumer products than men. So our target really is women, from teenagers all the way up to elderly women. They're the ones who go out and buy the books for their families and friends, even if the ultimate readers are going to be men. This particular book, The Power of Forgiveness, is for men and women. We have plenty of books that are just for women, though. But we really write our books for everybody. I mean, when you're a publisher, you really serve the whole population, not just one segment.
If you could share with our Lewis at Large listeners here, take us to day one as you start to plan for a new book in the series. How is the subject determined? And then from there, take us to the day that the book is actually released.
So I come up with these title ideas in my crazy brain, and then what we do is we post them on our website, and we see what kinds of stories we start getting. because there are thousands of freelance writers out there who go and look for new writing opportunities. So we put a title up, we see if we start getting good stories. If we get good stories, we say, all right, we're going to actually make this book. Because sometimes we don't get good stories, and then we know that a particular idea won't work. In this case, we started getting a lot of great stories. And then I met Anthony Anderson. Now, Anthony came to us. He's the star of Blackish and has been on a lot of TV shows and in a lot of movies. He came to us and he said, my dogs will only eat your dog food, because we have a line of super premium dog food and cat food. And he said, I love your company. I want to do something with you. I heard about his own story of forgiving his birth father for being an absentee father throughout his life and how he forgave his father on his deathbed. And I said, why don't we work on this Power of Forgiveness book together? So that was last summer. So then we went heavy duty into collecting stories, and by this fall, we had read the thousands of stories that were submitted all through our website. And I had talked to Anthony about what he saw for the topics in the book. And then we picked 101 stories that we thought contained the broadest and best message about the power of forgiveness. We edited the stories, and we went back to the writers of those stories, and we said, you've been chosen. Do you like our edits? We put them together, created the chapters, went off to the printer, and 6 weeks after you go to the printer, you get finished books in your office, and it's like the birth of a new child every single time.
I'll bet and you've got your husband pacing in the waiting room reading Field and Stream.
Yeah, I wish my husband would read my books.
Hey, if you just joined us again, yours truly, Warner Lewis, from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. We're talking to Amy Newmark, publisher, editor-in-chief, author of over 100 of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, #1 self-help series, obviously, around the world. She also writes a weekly column. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, and has a broad background as a writer, speaker, and also spent quite a bit of time in the financial world, Wall Street, et cetera, et cetera. Amy, is there and again, you weren't not with the series from day one, but you've been with there now quite a while. Is there a particular issue, particular series, particular subject that, as you look back, really, really maybe surprised you even in its popularity and the nerve that it struck?
There was one last spring that really amazed me, and that's when we did a book about living with Alzheimer's and other dementias. And that book became a huge hit from day one. I think it got to something like number 16 on Amazon, even though it's such a specialized topic. I mean, we all know about Alzheimer's, and it affects several million Americans, but that's still a small percentage of the overall population. But that book amazed me and showed me the real power that we have with our Chicken Soup for the Soul format, because people who are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's, or even people in the early stages of Alzheimer's, went crazy for that book, said, we feel less alone now, and we ran out of books immediately. We raised $60,000 or $70,000 for the Alzheimer's Association because we gave our royalties to the Alzheimer's Association from that book. In fact, we do that a lot. We give the royalties from many of our books to nonprofits. But I was really struck by how we could help people and how our format was so great for people sharing advice with each other because of that Alzheimer's book.
What about, again, as we talk about sort of your role in all of this, is this day in, day out, 60 hours a week, you are poring over articles, you're poring over subjects, you're poring over financials? Tell us a little bit about what your day is like.
I have a fabulous team of editors who work with me, and we all work 7 days a week. And it's really because we love what we do. We squeeze in our personal lives around our work, but I don't mean that in an unhealthy way, because we really do love what we do. We love working on these stories. We love interacting with our writers and with the public when they come back to us and tell us how the books have affected them. But it is really a passion. We all have a passion for this, and I've been doing it now nonstop since 2008, and really started in 2007 when I read 100 of the old Chicken Soup for the Soul books before we bought the company. So I don't know how many more years I'll do it. I suspect many, many years, because it really has become part of my life, and it has absolutely changed me as a person. I've become much less judgmental, much more understanding of everyone's foibles, And in fact, as I worked on the Power of Forgiveness book, I realized I didn't even have anybody that I personally needed to forgive because I've been basically rolling along forgiving people as life has gone on.
Okay. So you don't have any stored up stuff. You're pretty current.
I think I don't have any stored up stuff, although I don't know. You'd have to ask my husband. He might have a different opinion.
I got it. What about, and by the way, you must have a very, very loving, supportive husband, it sounds like, as well.
I have a great husband who happens to be the CEO of Chicken Soup for the Soul because we're doing this together.
Well, so we can either do gardening together or we can publish book series.
Yeah, no golf for us, just publishing.
Got it. Amy, the book series has been tremendously successful. People are very familiar, I think, sort of with the format. They come out sort of in a paperback, but they're nicely published. They've always got a nice cover, but a relatively branded, consistent style of cover. Let's talk about the future. As you look to the future, tell us about Chicken Soup for the Soul. Does that series tell us about online, virtual, social media, all those kind of virtual ways that you can communicate now?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of exciting things with the Chicken Soup for the Soul brand and feeling. And so we have that super premium line of dog food and cat food that I mentioned to you. We also have a line of food for people, which is delicious and which has really helped me since I don't often have time to cook dinner anymore. And then we also are making a major motion picture with Alcon, which was the studio behind The Blind Side. Our producer is Jordan Kerner, who's a very big producer. He did George of the Jungle, The Smurfs. And we also are making a TV show. We have a show for kids and families coming out in October of 2015. That will be on Saturday mornings. We're working on a bunch of other TV shows. And we have a fancy new website, chickensoup.com, where you can go to read information about these books and even read stories for free.
What, again, you sort of described for your audience, or for us anyway, who you felt sort of your typical reader was. Let's talk about the male reader. What can you do, or do you care that much? I don't mean to sound callous when I say it that way, but how important is it for you to draw in male readers, or in some cases maybe even younger readers?
We have a lot of younger readers because we're very popular with kids, preteens, teens. We've sold more than 17 million copies of our books that are for preteens and teens. Yeah, I mean, a lot of teachers use us in the schools. You talk to kids, and you'll find they all know the Chicken Soup for the Soul brand. We know that men read our books also, even though women are the ones who purchase them and bring them home. I always say to women, just leave the book in the bathroom so that your husband will actually read it. But we get a lot of favorable mail from men who talk about how the books have helped them as well. And we have a lot of books that we know are very helpful to men for success in business, for helping work through, hey, what do I want to do with my career next, or how do I want to be a better father or husband? So we know we're serving men as well, but our focus from a business point of view is to start with women because we know they're the shoppers, and they're going to bring those books home and get them into the hands of the men.
What about, and again, this is sort of going to tap into your sort of marketing acumen, what about the brand around the world? Or do you feel, is Chicken Soup for the Soul, is that series really right in the American wheelhouse? What do you think?
You'd be amazed at how global we are. We are so global that we see our books being stolen all over the world. And I know that sounds funny, but it really isn't. It's a really big problem. But the interesting thing is that Chicken Soup is known worldwide for its curative properties. And so everyone understands this concept of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And also, everyone loves the idea of the 101 stories from real people passing on whatever they've learned to the people coming up behind them. Storytelling works worldwide, right? It's been how mankind has shared wisdom and advice for thousands of years. So this format works everywhere. We are beloved all over. We have hundreds of thousands of Asians on our listed among our Facebook fans. So we're very global. We've been translated into more than 40 languages. And that's very cool, too. I remember I was talking to a customer service rep at Citibank one time, and she was in the Philippines, and I mentioned Chicken Soup for the Soul. And she said, "Oh, I love Chicken Soup for the Soul. You know, next time you're on the phone talking to India, ask them. They'll know the brand."
So as you look to the future, you have a very successful brand, you have a very successful sort of not predictable, but very reliable product in this book series. Take us to the future? Is it sort of more of the same, or what happened? Tell us about that.
You're going to see us continuing to put out probably on average a book a month with lots of new topics. So they're always going to be relevant to whatever is going on in people's lives. You're going to see us more and more on your screen, your big screen and your small screen, because we'll make sure that we're on YouTube. We already have a bunch of things on YouTube, a very inspirational chicken soup videos on Hoopla. But you're going to see us in the movie theater. You're going to see us on television. You're going to see us on your iPad. And you're going to see these books appearing even more in the schools than they were before, because we're working on a lot of new projects in the education market. So I think that we'll probably return to the heyday from when the books first came out in the mid-'90s and were, a huge thing all over the country. That initial Chicken Soup for the Soul book came out of nowhere and sold 8 million copies. It was the biggest book in publishing for many years. In fact, Chicken Soup for the Soul was the biggest series in publishing until Harry Potter came along.
As I think I kind of know the answer to this, but as Amy Newmark looks to the future, what are you going to be, grinding 7 days a week, or tell us about that? Go out a few years. What are you doing? How much and how involved are you?
I'm managing to take a few more vacations now. I'm even toying with the idea of a 2-week cruise in 2016.
Oh, wow.
Well, I've got such a great team. That's the thing. And we all think the same way now. And so I think that I might be able to work a little less. But honestly, I love doing this. And so many times I'll say, I'm not going to work tonight. I'm going to go and read a book. And then I'll find myself at the computer editing stories, because I actually do love making these books.
I can see you on the cruise. They have, as you know, they've got reading groups on those cruises. You could certainly lead one up on Chicken Soup for the newest book, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right. And, I hear you can get on these cruises for free if you go on and you lead some workshops. So I should look into that.
Either that or play some music, whatever you want to do. Amy, what about let's go out now a couple of years. Tell us kind of what we can expect. Do you guys have a sort of in your mind that certain number of releases per year, or tell us a little bit about that strategy?
Yeah, you're going to see a bunch of new releases from us. The next book you're going to see from us in March is going to be one I did with Jody Messina, the country music star.
Yep.
And I'm really excited about that. That's going to be our Mother's Day book. It's going to be called Thanks to My Mom. I have a lot of cool books coming out this year. Another one that I'm very excited about is called Dreams and Premonitions. I'm doing that one in the fall with one of the nation's dream experts, Kelly Sullivan Walden. Of course, we're going to have a great Christmas book coming out, and a lot of other books in 2015. And then in 2016, we're going to do another dog book and another cat book, because we do those every couple of years. I'll probably do an advice book somewhere along there. I've been thinking about taking my newspaper column and turning my columns into a book, because I get such great fan mail for the newspaper columns. I was thinking that I should assemble them all into one book. And I don't know. I can't even tell you everything that I'm going to do yet, because we're so responsive to what's going on out there that we will come up with a lot of new topics that will be very relevant to whatever people are buzzing about as time goes on.
Amy, before we wind down here completely, tell us a little bit, again, about the syndicated column you've got with the Hearst Corporation and the weekly thing on sheknows.com.
Yeah, so I write about whatever I feel like each week. Sometimes I talk about our stories and the wisdom I've learned from them, and sometimes I just go and talk about something that's of interest to me. Like the column I just finished writing that's coming out the week of March 2nd is actually about kale, because during all these snowstorms, there was a kale shortage in New York City, and I thought that was so funny.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and kale probably isn't as popular in Kansas as it is in New York City.
We know it. We know.
Yeah,
we know kale.
Well, I talk in this column about how they say you're supposed to massage your kale, and I'm not doing that. My kale is not having a spa experience. And then I looked on Google, discovered there's still 6 times as many articles about massaging your beef, your cattle, than there are about massaging your kale. So the world is still safe, right?
Yeah.
But so that's my new column. It's about kale. But most of my columns really are about what I've learned from our stories, and I tell our stories in my columns, and I get a lot of fan mail because people say that the columns have really helped them to deal with some issue in their lives.
Well, I don't know this for sure, but I think she's a finalist for the world's busiest woman. But we've been talking to Amy Newmark. She's a publisher, editor-in-chief, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Also has a couple of columns in her own right through Hearst Corporation, as well as a weekly column on SheKnows.com. With over 40 million unique visitors a month, all of them wondering what's Amy have to say this week. Hey, Amy, give us a little bit, how can people, if they don't know, I would think they would, but how can they find out more information about Chicken Soup for the Soul, a website, any social media? Where can they hit in addition to just going out and getting the books?
Our website is chickensoup.com. You can go there to read about the Power of Forgiveness book and all our other books. You can read excerpts from our books. You can also click on the bottom of our homepage where it says Submit Your Story and find out how you can become a published author in a Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Well, listen, thank you so much for the work that you have done. It is an incredibly popular series of books, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Amy Newmark, thanks for being a part of our show today.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciated it.
You bet. We will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.